actually, getting back to the chapter, I'm not 100% sure, like, assuming so, that this is Gray's transcendent magic and not something just like, him more powerful than before. I assume it's transcendent magic because one thing that we have from Lucy's that would align to this is not necessarily in like your magic will just develop some brand new like general abilities, but rather it will advance in a way that completely takes it out of a fundamental state of where you were before and puts at like a brand new OP version of that. And what that means is really when you think about Lucy's upgrade with her transcendent magic, the primary difference, like she's got like more magic to use and stuff like that, like that's obvious, but she's got the entire aspect of the keys written out. So if this is Gray's transcendent magic, at least from his ice make, it would make a lot of sense because it'd be like, oh, large scale, instantaneous. The fact they're multiple pieces, not like one big piece, as well as dynamically set ice make. Because Gray was really good at static ice make. That was like the style he used, whereas Leon used dynamic ice make, where they move around and stuff. And Gray's ice giants, what do you call them? Like ice make, I think heavy knights or heavy cavalry or whatever. They're all charging out, doing their own thing. Like it's just a large scale, powerful ass stack. And I'm guessing because he's got his Devil Slaying mark active at the time, that they would have a level of Devil Slaying ice and power put into them. Granted, it wasn't an ice make attack, specifically like ice make. We didn't see it as a Devil Slaying ability. If this is the transcendent version of his ice make, that's one thing. Whereas his transcendent for his Devil Slaying, I'm hoping still is a thing and ends up like I'm fine with it just being like a more powerful form. If it's just get some horns and some crazy ice spikes or something, because the difference between Gray and the other, pretty much anybody else in the main cast is he uses two magics now. He like his Devil Slaying takes on the properties of pretty much how he used his ice make primarily, like his shaping weapons essentially, because that's all he does really with his ice devil. It's just like a more powerful ice devil version, like a Slayer version of how he was already fighting, whereas his ice make advanced, we don't know if his Devil Slaying did, because he uses two magics, like I said. Natsu's got like, well, the transformation magic he learned in an extra chapter that doesn't really matter in these scenarios, but Fire Dragon Slaying magic. Ursa's got Requip. Lucy's got her Celestial Spirit keys. Wendy's got her Sky Dragon Slayer magic, and even her enchanting powers are like an extension of like how she uses her Sky Dragon abilities. Whereas for Gray, Ice Make and Devil Slaying are two completely separate magics. The thing that they just share is ice as an attribute, and Gray, like I said, uses his Devil Slaying abilities essentially the same as how he used his Ice Make abilities. So there's still the possibility in his Devil Slaying side and his Devil Slaying magic actually still getting an advanced and transcended form. But for now, I'm actually really happy with this, because like I said, with Lucy's, she doesn't need her keys anymore. It's an easy way to kind of just describe a power-up play. It's not like, you gained X amount of extra forms and new summon keys and whatnot. Like, that's cool too. But with her not needing keys, essentially, like, you just went up to like the base way of like how her magic works and covered up one of the sentences and said, you don't need keys, are relevant, you don't need them, you don't need to abide by any of that. As long as you can have the contracts done, you can pretty much just summon them. And I'm guessing with Gray's, it's this large-scale dynamic ice make. Because one of the ways he beat Rufus was just off speed of just multiple, like a whole horde of singular ice makes all at high speeds, whereas this is just like multitude of giant ice makes all at one speed instantaneously, all moving on their own dynamic, because they're not just charging forward. You see them like some of them are moving from the side, some of them are coming from one angle, or others are coming from a different angle, using their weapons differently. It is, as you'd expect, a complicated attack from Gray. I'm pretty happy about. So Hakune got defeated. I was really hoping Hakune was more of a fighter, but my question more of her fight with Gray was how Gray was going to get past the diamond effect, and apparently the Devil Slaying side was able to counteract it long enough to break it, and because of that, Gray was able to get away. So after that point, it was, okay, well, how's the fight between them going to go? Hakune staying a caster meant that she probably didn't have the best durability. When you look at the main three, well, really just the only three with Moonlight Beauty Gods. Each of them have a different thing. Mimi's is body, like she is the fighter. You have Yoko, who is the ranged summoner. She's a summoner. And then you have Hakune, who seemingly was all a ranged caster. She didn't have any plain melee attacks or had anything that would demonstrate her ability to actually like take hits and damage. I mentioned, so I'm gonna do a video soon. I wanted to wait until after Gray's fight to do a rematch on Gray versus Scoleon and see how this new information that we got in this chapter, this new technique you can use, a new style, if it's enough essentially to give him an edge against Scoleon. And it's funny because in relevant talk rather to this chapter, some people were talking about like how fast Hakune went down once Gray got to her. But that's the thing, when you're a caster, if you have somebody who's like a heavy attacker, or at least get somebody to have a heavy attack on you, and you're not able to guard or defend against it, you don't have an ability to guard or defend against it, you're probably going to get drastically hurt or get taken down, because that's how people who aren't used to taking damage, don't have abilities that spec into durability and whatnot, really play out. Whereas when we get to Gray versus Scoleon for the rematch, that has to be a longer fight, because Gray's not going to have the whole, oh, he's a caster kind of thing. I can damage him and take him out with one serious attack. That level of damage being direct contact would be like, pretty lucrative. Whereas not going to be the case with Scoleon. Scoleon is a Dragon Slayer. He's going to have a very durable body. He's going to have a very high threshold for pain. He's going to be a tank. That's how pretty much all Dragon Slayers are. The only one that logically would not be a tank is Kyria, because Kyria specs specifically into clear the damage and doesn't have any durability feats whatsoever to really hold for. She still should have like an absolute minimum, but I don't really see her, at least from what we've seen, have that high level of durability that would really kind of like put her in a good spot. Either way, after the fight with Gray and Hakune, we got like a calming down portion, and everyone's starting to chill. Everyone's starting to kind of do their thing. Like, they are commenting on Gray's large ice knights that he's sending out, which look really cool. I was wondering if Gray got his devil slaying side like further progressed in this form, and he made his whole like heavy knights with demonic ice, because it's not the same thing, because we haven't had any like, oh, here's a visible difference between them. Like, we know there's a gap between, say, Devil Ice and regular ice, but in the anime, the Devil Ice is slightly different. It's a little bit more kind of purplish pink. What if he ended up using his Ice Make with more Devil Slaying powers, or if he essentially did this but way more Devil Slayer than Ice Make, made them again, but they were kind of demonic looking, like darker ice, and they had like these like more monstrous horns and maybe different weapons, maybe they moved differently. There's a lot of potential there for Gray's just general moveset and use that he brings into the fights now, just off the top of the hat of this new ability. But if he got to like even cooler while doing it, I would love that. And then combining it with other ones, because his Ice Making, his Devil Slaying, logically can combine and do stuff. And he's combined them before in the past, so I don't know why he wouldn't be able to do it now. My guess is like if he can only do so many things at the same time, and also like if he's never tried it before, he's probably not gonna risk it in battle unless it's like the last card option. But while he's fighting Hakune just gets overrun. I like Hakune's, was it Diamond Titan? I really wish that we got an explanation of what it did, if it had any other effects, or if it was just like, a really powerful, big, bulky creature. Like, how would it fare? But I did like that she had this. It's similar to Yoko. Like, it's a very easy, simplistic defense, kind of like offense attack for them to have, but similar to like Yoko and her whole like, oh, I take a yokai, I put it on myself, and I gain its abilities. And you had the one multi-armed crazy sword demon chick, and this is a big ice construct for your Hakune. It just goes with her whole setup. Obviously ice or not, but it's giving her a additional thing outside of just her casting. Like, if she got done with her spell casting, or I guess spiritual art casting, and those techniques, none of them worked, or she's in a corner, bam, you pull out this giant muscly ice like meathead to take your opponent down and probably manhandle him, because I'm guessing that's what she would regularly do. Probably has worked in the past, but obviously not here for Gray, because that's when Gray summons his whole heavy knights and he just starts taking them down. They just pierce through it, shatter the Diamond Titan, and launch Hakune down for the count. Mimi's done, and Hakune's done. They are beaten. But Hukune especially. Hukune is especially like a good example of a character. It's like you can have some good hacks, but you have to be ready to fight if like if your plans don't work and your opponent wants to come through hands with you, because at that point, do you want to be able to at least defend yourself, or are you just going to get beat up? Because Hakune is an example of what happens when you don't have that. When you're a caster but not used to taking damage, letting yourself get struck. And I granted, there's way more casters and like summoners and stuff in the Fairy Tail world than physical brawlers. Like fighting wizards, like combat wizards, aren't that common. We've only had realistically a handful of them, especially outside of Dragon Slayers. Like Slayer mages, you take Slayer mages out, I wanted to bet that's like half of the regular like hand-to-hand melee wizards in the series really subtracted. And when they're all calming down, just getting chill, like nothing seems to be a big deal. We defeated these guys and are getting ready to move on to whatever's next. Kind of just like a calm before the storm. And that's when the whole land starts shaking. Everything around them starts just completely rumbling. And the Whiteout Priestess is explaining that this is all pretty much because of Selene, all of the decades of time that they've really had and generations of going around embracing magic in the area has led them to not have enough, and you have the hands just completely overwhelmed by magic and are going around flailing and smashing stuff. And we got a moment from Wendy that I did not foresee at all this chapter. Like it didn't cross my mind in any point during any of the Elentier stuff. Not even like when we saw the hands earlier. It's when he's like looking at it and saying how the whole scene essentially reminds her of Face. And we had the faces, which were pretty much magic in peace. They just erase magic in the area. And Wendy even takes note of that. They're this giant AoE EMP of magic. Wipe out magic across the whole continent through all these different face constructs. Whereas here, the hands, like she says, like it's an expression or sorry, a symbol of magical expansion. There's too much magic, so these spawn. And she's trying to connect the dots between them. I'm trying to connect the dots between them because I don't really know entirely of where she's going with this. Are the hands created by somebody? Somewhat how like they had face in case of they ever really needed it against Alvarez. Do they need the hands to put up the hands? Like what's the whole point of the hands? Otherwise, did we get the information in Earthland that led to them creation of face from seeing this, or like how exactly is it structured differently so it's going to kind of connect and things are going to make sense about this one? Because this is a really weird plot twist I didn't see coming at all. I looked at the Raw chapter when it came out, and I was like seeing Wendy like look at all of them and then like think back to Face, and I was just like, I could see like if somebody saw some of the paneling and it reminded them visually of Face, but I didn't think that Face was going to come into play at all in this whole setup, in this arc. Like Face having its name brought up and really gone over is crazy to me. Not in like an actual like insane way, but it's just like I didn't see this coming at all. I didn't see them like talking about a plot point of the Tartarus arc having in any way notable worth in bringing up during Elentier of all places. And I really want to know where Wendy's able to connect these, because I'm thinking about it myself and I don't really know anything off the top of my head other than like a couple of theories of like, did somebody make hands? Is it built in? Was Face always there? Is somebody like creating them? How is this all set up to really work? Like, does Selene have any hand in this? No pun intended. Like I know that she's obviously not letting them do their job with the whiteouts and stuff, but like, did she put all these hands around there, or like, what's the deal? Maybe she's related to Face at some point too. Absolutely no idea how that's gonna go. Like everything else that's been going on, like I'm able to look at it and be like, okay, I can try and form an idea of where this plot point is gonna go, where exactly X, Y, or Z is going to angle in whatever spot to where they can connect to a different point in the story, and then I can formulate ideas of like how that's gonna work. Right now with Face, I have no real different idea of, other than the couple ideas that I put out here, of why Face of all things is referenced. Like if we were gonna have anything from the Tartarus arc like that referenced, I would have guessed the Magna Carta, because dragons are obviously back in the picture. We don't know how many dragons are still out in the world. We know the dragon gods, but I'd be willing to bet, and I think it's a safe bet to assume that there are places where dragons are hiding away, keeping a low profile, because I don't know, there's a big world, and it wouldn't surprise me if some of them were just hiding out, waiting until Acnologia disappeared and just haven't gotten the information yet. So the Magna Carta could become relevant if that was the case, because obviously the treaty between humans and dragons, we could get something out of that. beyond the arc that it was initially was in. I think that would be really cool, especially with the fact that we're now doing a lot of stuff with dragons. Maybe we can get a reference back to it. We can get it brought up. It doesn't need to be, because it would seem to be mostly, like, it could easily have just been rather between certain individuals, like the dragons that took part in the Dragon Slayer plan and whatnot, and the humans that you know, they conversed with and conveyed with through Zeref and Anna and whatnot. But yeah, I have no idea what the face stuff is going to do, but I am excited nonetheless for everything else. We pretty much got the chapter. I was happy about Gray. I was thinking more of like a crazy power, but if this was his Transcendent Ice Make, I think it would make sense. But plus it would also give us an understanding of what exactly they get by coming down to her. What does it mean by transcending your magic? Because I was thinking more of like a new ability. Like you just get outright more powerful. You can do X, Y, or Z more. It seems more of like it just gets so advanced that you don't have to worry about like a drawback or a crutch that otherwise used to be associated with it, or it will evolve in a better aspect in design, like if this is what Gray's was, where Gray went way more into dynamic Ice Wake rather than his static one that he had prior. So there's that as well. I was very excited. Like I had almost like a brief waking up on Christmas morning kind of moment when I looked at the end of the chapter, because it went back to Sleet and Suzaku. The chapters are actually going borderline exactly how I wanted them to go in this fight. I expected it to be Suzaku versus Celine, one chapter. Next chapter, Lucy versus Mimi. Next chapter, Gray versus Akune. Following chapter, Suzaku versus Celine. And we got mostly that. We got a chapter and a half opening of Celine versus Suzaku, then we cut over to the half of Lucy versus Mimi, then we get a chapter of Lucy versus Mimi, and then we get the 2 chapters of Gray and Hakune. It's different in chapter size than I guessed, but I don't think that really matters too much. And then we're ending with the Suzaku and Celine encounter, which is exactly, like I said, how I wanted to go. I wanted it to be sandwiched like that. I thought that was the best way to do it. And beyond that, I'm guessing we're going to have this Diablo crew show, because they're going to need the help. Suzaku, they have to get him out of there. He's gonna die. There's no way he really can do anything, because he's wincing in pain. He's like not looking too good. Like he's all covered in like scrapes and damage and blood. He's huffing and puffing. Like he's exhausted. He's got not a lot of power left, I would assume. I don't think he's just gonna drop Dragon Force. And Celine looks relatively fine. She doesn't look like she's broken a sweat. She doesn't look like she's had any difficulty whatsoever in this fight at any angle or moment. Celine is good. So that portion, I am so hyped to see that. Like the next chapter, generally, I said, out of the ones that we're getting between these last, essentially everything since the fight, is I think the first one I really wanted to see the most, because it was Suzaku's abilities I really wanted to see showcased. I was happy to get stuff from Celine, but Suzaku was just so new and I'd been waiting on him that I really wanted to get his content. Also, obviously, with Gray. Like, I wanted to get all these fights and whatnot and, like, see how things went. Like, what exactly are the characters going to do to win, and what are their new abilities, and, like, whatever they're going to have to pull up to, you know, to get a victory. And we got all that. And now we're back to the Celine versus Suzaku fight. And, man, I am excited to see where this goes. Because, like I said, I can guess where the fight is going to go. Suzaku can't beat Celine. Diablos is going to have to show up and help them, and they're going to have to get out of there. It could literally happen exactly like that, and I'll still be really excited, because that'll be such a sick scene. If like we just see Suzaku turning to ash, and then all of a sudden appear in front of Scolia, and he's like, yeah, well, at least we found you before you're dead, kind of thing. We're glad that you didn't die to the crazy moon dragon. Anyway, other than that, though, it was a really solid chapter. Like, it had mostly what I wanted. Like, the only way it, I think, could have been even crazier is if we got, like, a couple more techniques from Hakune and Gray. Especially Hakune. If we could have got, like, 2 to 3 more techniques from her, I think that would have been the most optimal, because we only get the one from her, like the diamond effect in this chapter. If we got a couple more, I'd be pretty stoked. But it depends. Like, the thing about the Moonlight Beauty Gods right now is we don't know how long they're going to be around. None of them were killed in their fight, so they could easily come back. I think in regards to that of their return value and their return possibilities, it's going to depend on Celine when Celine gets to them. Because Celine could easily just kill them and not care, or she could figure out a way to make them stronger. There's definitely stuff that Celine can bring to the table for this match, but I don't really know what Celine is going to do in regards to the Moonlight Beauty Gods and whatnot. It's definitely a big mystery. It's Celine, so you'd have absolutely no idea if she's gonna be chill or if she's gonna be all insane and mad, or if she's gonna be just looking to kill somebody. Celine's a wild card, so at least there's that. I guess that's the only thing we really know about scenarios. Like Celine's a wild card. Don't expect anything else to work normally. Just expect that she's gonna do crazy things at some point. Well, who knows when? Anyway, I definitely enjoyed the chapter. Looking forward to the next chapter. And seeing what the other characters' transcendent magics are. Is it just like, are they gonna all get like just some extra perk in their magic? Something kind of just says like, screw that rule. Like, is Natsu gonna be able to eat his own fire, or is he going to be able to? I don't know. Maybe he'll have like a general like higher level of power with his fire. Like just the flames are hotter. Maybe he can do something extra with it. Maybe he can fly around like a jet or something crazy. I don't really know. Either way, comment below, thumbs up the video, prefer the like button, subscribe, and check out my other videos. But other than that, I appreciate everybody's already subscribed. Thank you all for listening. Bye.